You're not crazy, you're not weak, and no, you're not imagining things. One day, everything seems normal. The calls still come, the messages are still warm, your friends still care, your family still feels close. But then, little by little, you start to notice the silence, the averted glances. Conversations grow shorter, colder. People begin to pull away from you, and you have no idea why. You look inward, trying to find where you went wrong, but what unsettles you even more is this: you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't change. And yet, somehow, the way others see you, the way they treat you, has completely shifted. And that's where the cruelty begins. You're becoming the target of an invisible attack, a calculated manipulation tactic launched by a narcissist. Narcissists don't need to scream to destroy you. All they have to do is shift the way others perceive you. They don't confront you head-on. They plant seeds of doubt in the hearts of the people you love. They retell stories, carefully distorted, blending bits of truth with calculated lies. They appear calm, reasonable, even concerned for you, and through that, they win people's trust. You're not present in the conversation. You don't get to explain. And one by one, the people who once stood by you begin to disappear. What's most heartbreaking, the people turning away from you aren't bad people. They've simply been manipulated. They genuinely believe they're doing the right thing. They believe the version of the story they've been told. And you, the one silenced, suddenly become the problem in everyone's eyes. If you're going through this, I want you to know something. You are not alone, and you are not invisible. There's a reason you were targeted, not because you're weak, but because you're valuable. And there is a way out of this chaos without lowering yourself, without begging for belief, and most of all, without reacting the way they expect you to. In this video, I'm not just going to help you understand how a narcissist manipulates your reputation. I'm going to show you a different approach, a smarter, calmer one that allows you to hold on to your worth without losing yourself in their dirty game. What you're about to hear isn't your typical advice, but if you're patient enough to stay until the end, you'll understand why. Sometimes the most powerful way to reclaim your life is through silence. To understand why a narcissist wants to turn everyone around you against you, we first need to face a hard truth. Narcissists don't seek love, they seek power. For them, relationships aren't about connection, trust, or empathy. They're about control. It's all a game of chess. And every person in your life, your best friend, your co-workers, even your own family, becomes a piece they can use. When they sense their position is threatened, when you begin to ask questions, when you pull back the control you once gave them without realizing, they strike back. But not through honest conversation or direct confrontation. No, they don't destroy you to your face. They do it behind your back. They know that you're most vulnerable when you're cut off from your support system. They know that isolation is the quickest path to collapse. So they begin to quietly convince others that you're unstable, that you've changed, that you're the one with the problem. They don't need proof, just a whisper of doubt. And they know if they say it enough times in a calm voice with a concerned look, people will believe it without question. This isn't random, it's a strategy. And it has a name: smear campaign. Narcissists are masters at crafting a persona: the kind-hearted friend, the victim, the concerned observer. They'll say things like, "I'm only sharing this because I truly care. I just think they're headed down a bad path." They frame everything in moral concern, while systematically dismantling your credibility. They don't scream, they whisper, and that is far more dangerous. What makes this tactic so effective is that it preys on a deep flaw in human psychology, our tendency to believe what's told with emotion, confidence, and from someone who seems to know what they're talking about. In American culture, where we're taught to hear both sides, the narcissist uses this very principle to manipulate. They make sure to tell their side first, controlling the first version of the truth others hear. Once someone thinks they already know the truth, especially if it comes from a seemingly trustworthy source, they become much less open to anything that contradicts it, and that leaves you, the one being slandered, at a severe disadvantage. You're not just trying to tell the truth. You're trying to tear down a false narrative that's already been built around you. What hurts the most? Sometimes, the people you trusted the most become the very ones who help carry out the smear campaign. Not out of malice, but because they were unaware. They don't realize they've become tools in someone else's manipulation. And here's what you need to remember. Narcissists don't destroy you with fists. They do it with words, with sweetness, with stories dripping in genuine concern. Every sentence is designed to chip away at your place in other people's hearts, while they stand at the center playing storyteller, hero, and victim all at once. So if you start noticing shifts in the people around you, if you feel something is off but can't quite explain why, trust your intuition. Division never begins with explosions, it begins with whispers, and by the time you see it clearly, you may already be standing alone among the people who once called you family. One of the most painful questions survivors struggle with isn't, "Why did they do this to me?" It's, "Why did everyone believe it?" The people who once felt close to you, who used to laugh with you, share sincere moments, now turn their backs so quickly, all because of one story told by the narcissist. No evidence, no fact-checking, just a single narrative, and suddenly everything changes. Why does that happen? The answer lies in a simple but painful truth. People are more likely to believe a well-told story than the actual truth. Narcissists don't need to present facts. They only need to tell a story that feels emotional, sounds superficially logical, and most importantly, is heard first. In media and legal systems, this is called the first narrative advantage, the power of shaping perception by being the first voice others hear. Once that version is in place, anything you say afterward is dismissed as justification or damage control. And there's more. Narcissists often present themselves as the victim, and that taps into a vulnerability in American culture, the instinct to sympathize with the one who appears to be hurt. When someone says, "I've been hurt by this person you know," many people respond with, "Oh, I didn't think they were like that, but if you say so, maybe there's something to it." And, just like that, doubt begins to grow. No one wants to believe they're being manipulated. That's why, once someone buys into a narrative, they will defend that belief, often by refusing to hear your side. This is called confirmation bias. They now view you through the lens of that accusation, and everything you do, no matter how normal, is interpreted in a negative light. If you're sad, they say you're unstable. If you stay quiet, they say you're cold. If you try to explain, they say you're overreacting. You get trapped in a pre-made mold, a story the narcissist designed for you with precision. What's worse is that many people don't want to get involved in someone else's drama, or they prefer to stay on the safe side, which, in their eyes, is the calm, reasonable, rational one. That's how narcissists portray themselves. They perform well. They know the psychology of crowds. They know how to make you seem unbalanced simply by staying composed while you unravel under the weight of betrayal. Another major factor is fear of conflict. Most people don't have the courage to come to you and say, "I heard something, can we talk about it?" They choose instead to retreat, to go silent, or to stay neutral, unaware that their silence becomes a form of silent complicity. And so you gradually become isolated, not because people hate you, but because too many are too quick to believe, too lazy to verify, too afraid of messy truths, and too easily swayed by a well-crafted lie. But here's what you must understand. You can't fix this by shouting your innocence. You can't restore every relationship by trying to explain your side, because the issue isn't really about you. It's about how others choose to handle truth, perception, and their own discomfort. What you need isn't to chase everyone down with justifications. What you need is to realize this: any relationship that can be shaken by a single story was never truly strong to begin with. When you discover that people are believing lies about you, your first instinct, almost reflexively, is to explain, defend yourself, and prove your innocence. You feel the urge to call, to text, to clear everything up. You think that if you just tell the whole truth, they'll understand. They'll come back. They'll apologize for doubting you, but reality hits differently. The more you explain, the worse things get. Why? Because the narcissist has already planned for this. They know you'll react. In fact, they've calculated how you're likely to react, and they use that very reaction to reinforce the story they've already planted in others' minds. If you get angry, they say you're emotionally unstable. If you're hurt, they say you're using your emotions to manipulate. If you reach out to explain, they say you're obsessive and can't let go. Nothing you do will ever be right in the eyes of those who've been influenced. And the cruel irony is that the more you try to defend yourself, the more you reinforce the distorted image the narcissist has created of you. Why does this happen? Because you're reacting from a place of weakness. When you try to prove yourself, you're operating under the assumption that the other person controls the narrative, and you're just chasing after them to correct it. That dynamic instantly puts you in a position of inferiority, making others see you as weak and defensive. Worse still, the more you say, the more material the narcissist has to twist. You send a long message trying to explain yourself. They can take a single screenshot, send it to someone else and say, "See, she still won't leave me alone. She's still pressuring me." No matter what your intentions are, they'll always find a way to spin it. And that's how you get trapped in a vicious cycle. You're misunderstood. You try to explain. You're misunderstood even more. You feel even more hurt. So here's the hard truth you must accept. Explaining won't save you. It won't undo the damage. It won't wake people up. And it certainly won't stop the narcissist. In fact, it only drains your energy, erodes your calm, and distances you from who you truly are. At this point, what you need most isn't vindication, it's freedom from the manipulation game. And that freedom begins the moment you stop reacting. When you stop explaining, stop chasing people's emotions, and start living firmly by your own values with clarity and composure, that's when you reclaim your power, not through words, but through unshakable presence. Narcissists don't fear confrontation. What they fear is non-reaction. Because when you go silent without falling apart, when you refuse to play the role they scripted for you, their entire performance begins to fall apart. No one is ever prepared for this kind of loss. It's not like death, it's not like romantic betrayal, and it's nothing like a typical argument. This is a silent kind of loss, but one that cuts to the bone. The loss of your reputation, and with it, the loss of your place in the hearts of those who once trusted you. When a narcissist systematically destroys your image with carefully crafted words, they don't just turn people against you. They force you to live inside a distorted version of yourself. You're still you, but through the eyes of others, you've become someone completely different, selfish, unstable, toxic. And over time, that warps the way you see yourself. You begin to wonder, did I really do something wrong? Did I hurt them and not realize it? You start combing through every action, every word you've ever said. You become trapped in a hopeless loop between anger, shame, and relentless self-questioning. And then comes the isolation. Friends you once trusted vanish. People you were once close to grow silent or distant. No one checks in, no one stands up for you. Their silence stings more than accusations ever could. And that unspoken loneliness, though no one names it, starts to eat you alive from within. You might walk into work and feel eyes following you. You might scroll through old messages, unsure whether you're even welcome to reach out anymore. And worst of all, you no longer know who believes you and who doesn't. That uncertainty slowly erodes your trust, not just in others, but in yourself. When you're unsure how others see you, you begin to shrink. You speak less. You show up less. You hide, afraid that anything you say or do could be twisted or misunderstood. This state, psychologically, is known as a social identity injury. You're not just hurt emotionally, you've lost your social standing, which is deeply tied to how we perceive our own value. Human beings don't exist in a vacuum. We're shaped by interaction, by how others reflect our worth back to us. So when that reflection is shattered unjustly, it feels like your very existence has been erased. Many people can't grasp why victims fall into depression or lose their will to live, but the truth is, when your reputation is stripped away, when even the people closest to you start to doubt you, you no longer know who you are. This isn't weakness. This is real trauma. And if you're feeling it, let yourself acknowledge the pain. You don't have to power through right away. What you need is a safe space to begin healing, and the unwavering truth that you are not crazy, you are not wrong. You've just survived an invisible, calculated assault on the core of who you are. And believe me, no matter how many people turn away, no matter how loud the rumors become, your true worth remains untouched. It doesn't vanish just because someone else refuses to see it. The moment you stop reacting emotionally, not because you're powerless, but because you finally understand the mechanics of the game, you begin to step into your true power. The narcissist is no longer the center, their story no longer drives the narrative, and you, rather than trying to fix others' perceptions, start treating your own well-being as a matter of survival. Here are 5 essential steps, not just to protect your reputation, but more importantly to safeguard your identity, your peace, and your inner authority. Step 1. Pause all emotional public reactions. When you know your image is being distorted, when you're being slandered or misunderstood, your natural impulse is to speak out, to defend yourself, to reveal the truth, and that's completely human. But in an environment already manipulated by a narcissist, an emotional reaction becomes fuel to further burn your credibility. Every emotional post, every lengthy message of justification, every tense exchange, no matter how genuine your pain, can be taken out of context, shared, twisted, and used as proof that you're unstable. They'll say, "See, I told you." The more you react, the more they validate their narrative. Instead of speaking through the storm, sit still in your strength. Learn to speak without speaking. Stay calm, act with clarity, be present without pleading. Narcissists don't know how to deal with that kind of silence. They want you to explode so they can cast you as the problem. When you no longer give them that, you reclaim a power they can't manipulate. Step 2. Communicate privately and consciously with those who truly matter. You don't need to speak to the world. In a battle over your reputation, what matters isn't reaching the masses, it's discerning who's actually worth speaking to. Only talk to people who are aware, emotionally mature, and fair-minded enough not to judge you based on someone else's story. These conversations should be calm. No blaming, no begging, no speeches. You don't need to win anyone over. You just need to be honest enough for them to truly see you. A simple sentence like, "If there's anything you've heard about me that causes doubt, I'm open to talking about it. And if you trust me, thank you for holding on to that trust," can be a powerful, dignified way of speaking your truth without being defensive. And if someone, no matter how close, chooses to believe others over hearing you out, let their silence be the answer. Those who deserve your presence are the ones who have the courage to walk into truth with you, not hide behind convenient neutrality. Step 3. Set clear boundaries with the manipulator and their enablers. You cannot heal while still living inside a zone of manipulation. This is when you redefine your mental space, who gets access and who does not. And this doesn't require drama, no declarations, no fights, just action. With the narcissist, whether it's an ex, a family member, or a colleague, you must disconnect energetically. Don't respond to baiting messages. Don't engage in murky conversations. Don't try to understand them more. They don't need to be understood. They need to be distanced, so they can no longer harm you. As for the enablers, whether intentional or not, you don't need to argue with them either. Just remember this: if you couldn't stand by me when I was under attack, then I don't need to share my life with you going forward. Friendship and trust cannot thrive where there is no courage to stand against injustice. This kind of boundary setting might feel lonely at first, but that loneliness is far cleaner than staying in a space full of suspicion, performance, and toxic compromise. Step 4. Shift your energy from pain to purposeful healing. What you've been through is real. Your pain is valid, but you can't let the pain become your identity. This is the moment to shift from the victim to the builder. No one can reclaim your value for you, except you. Healing begins with small, tangible steps. Journaling daily to process your emotions, reading about boundaries and self-worth, seeking a therapist if needed. Nourish your body. Move, eat well, rest, not for anyone else, but because you're rebuilding the inner home of your soul. Every time the hurt resurfaces, ask yourself, what can I do right now to heal rather than just hurt? Even the smallest healthy action is a step toward reclaiming your power from the shadows. Step 5. Redefine your standard for relationships. Quality over quantity. A narcissist may cost you many people, but that isn't the end. It's a form of cleansing. And now you get the chance to start fresh, with intention. Ask yourself, what kind of people do I want in my life? What kinds of relationships nourish me rather than drain me? It's not about finding the right people immediately. It's about choosing the right values to build on going forward. You may find yourself with just a few people left, but if those few are consistent, honest and real, you have more than most people surrounded by crowds who never truly care. One healthy connection can restore your trust in humanity more powerfully than dozens of shallow ones. From here on out, build a new circle, smaller, deeper and more authentic, and those who don't want to walk with truth, let them go. Not out of bitterness, but because you deserve to live in a world where kindness isn't treated like a surprise. There is one thing the narcissist can never predict and never prepare for, and that is your non-reaction. When you refuse to play the game they've designed, when you don't defend yourself, don't chase after people to fix what's been twisted, don't get angry the way they hoped you would, their entire performance begins to crumble from within. Remember, narcissists don't live in truth. They live in the story they've constructed to control how others see them and how others see you. And for that story to have power, they need you to participate in it. If you refuse to play the villain, if you don't act out the script they've planted in people's minds, then slowly, the cracks begin to show. At first, others may doubt you. They may pull away, go cold, or avoid you. But time is the one thing a narcissist can't control forever, because over time their true behavior begins to betray them. Those who once believed their emotional narrative will start to notice inconsistencies, contradictions, and situations where the manipulator loses control of the storyline. And in that moment, your silence becomes your strongest proof, not through shouting, but through your refusal to respond with hate, through your ability to live with kindness, through the fact that you never tried to force anyone to come back, but those with integrity will come back on their own. Narcissists don't fear your anger. They don't fear your sadness. They fear one thing: your calm. Because that calm proves they no longer control you. You are no longer their victim. You are no longer a piece on their chessboard. And when they lose control over your emotions, they lose the very source of fuel they depended on. With no one left to manipulate, no one to blame, no one to cast into a role, they are forced to face the emptiness within. You don't need to expose them, they will expose themselves. You don't need to demand justice. Time will handle that. All you need is to stay steady, whole, and silent when it matters. Truth doesn't need you to scream it. Truth just needs you to exist with quiet strength. And one day, someone who once doubted you will return. They'll say, "I don't know why I ever believed that, but now I see clearly." And if they don't return, that's okay too, because the people truly worth your presence don't need to be convinced to trust you. They just need to witness who you are through your consistency over time. Remember, you are not here to win in everyone's eyes. You are here to live honestly, in your own, and sometimes that is the greatest victory you'll ever claim. After you walk away from the storm the narcissist created, after the slander, the isolation, and the long days of silently struggling, there comes a moment when you realize you've spent far too long living through the eyes of others. From a young age, we're taught to protect our image, to keep people happy, to clear up misunderstandings. But no one tells you that sometimes the more you try to be understood, the more you lose yourself. And after being manipulated, the first thing you need is not to reclaim your reputation, but to rebuild your identity. Your identity is not what others think of you. It's not the role you played in your family, your friend group, or your workplace. Your true identity begins when you ask yourself, if I no longer had to explain or prove anything, who am I? That question is your starting point. From there, you begin laying a new foundation within. You start asking, what values are non-negotiable to me? What makes me feel most like myself? Who do I want to share life with and why? And then something strange but profound happens. Your old social circles no longer fit. The relationships that once felt safe are revealed to be conditional, dependent on keeping the peace, pleasing others, hiding the truth. After what you've been through with a narcissist, you no longer have the energy nor the desire to maintain that kind of connection. This is when it's time to rebuild. But this time, you do it with new standards. Look for relationships that hold 3 essential qualities. Honesty without judgment. The ability to listen without trying to control. Respect for personal boundaries. You may find that not many people meet all 3, but the quality of these relationships will heal you far more than quantity ever could. One person who is genuine and solid is more valuable than 10 friendly faces who turn their backs the moment gossip reaches their ears. You'll also need to learn the power of selective connection. Not everyone who enters your life deserves a place in it. Tune in to how you feel. If you have to walk on eggshells to keep a relationship, if you're constantly censoring yourself to avoid being misunderstood, if you always feel like you're not enough, then that space is no longer meant for you. The journey of rebuilding relationships after narcissistic manipulation is not a lonely one. It's a process of curating your environment. Like a garden that was once ravaged, you can't replant using the same seeds in the same soil. You must till the ground, plant something new, and put up clear fences to protect what's growing. And finally, never forget, your relationship with yourself is the most important one. Learn to speak to yourself with kindness, forgiveness, and patience. Treat yourself like the loyal friend you always wished you had. You don't need to become a perfect version of yourself. You only need to become someone who no longer lives for acceptance, but lives for truth. At some point in your healing journey, you'll come face to face with a question that's not easy to answer. Who am I when I no longer need anyone's approval? This question doesn't arise from a wounded ego. It comes from the depth of true recovery. When you no longer feel the need to explain yourself, no longer crave closure, and no longer wait for those who abandoned you to return, you begin to enter a different kind of inner space. It's a place without applause or spotlight, but one filled with a quiet strength that no amount of praise or outside acceptance can replicate. We grow up in a society that teaches us to equate recognition with identity. From school grades and family approval to likes on social media, we're conditioned to believe that our worth must come from external sources. But after surviving the dark terrain shaped by a narcissist, you discover something no classroom ever taught. Your true value doesn't lie in what others see. It lies in the fact that you stayed true to yourself, even when no one else believed in you. When you stop living to please others, you'll be surprised at how much you change. You speak less, but your words carry more meaning. You stop seeking those who echo your thoughts, and instead, you look for people who are honest enough not to pretend. You no longer feel the need to maintain relationships built on fragile half-truths. You let go of the fear of being misunderstood and instead choose to live with clarity, kindness, and alignment with your own principles, even if it means walking that path alone. Eventually, you'll realize there's nothing more liberating than stepping out of the victim role in a story you no longer wish to belong to. You stop waiting for the narcissist to be exposed. You stop wishing for justice to come and restore your name. You let go of the need to prove yourself, not because you've surrendered the truth, but because you've chosen freedom over validation. At that point, your strength no longer comes from winning arguments or seeing people return to apologize. It comes from this unshakable peace, knowing you can live each day without having to be understood, without having to correct the narrative, and without allowing the fear of being misjudged to dictate your actions. And if someone were to ask, "How do you know you've truly healed?" you'll smile and say, "Because I no longer need anyone to understand me. I only need to understand myself and live by that truth, regardless of what others choose to believe." There are stories told about you that you'll never have the chance to respond to. There are distorted images, whispered rumors, and people who once felt close to you suddenly walking away without a word. But that doesn't mean they saw the real you. They only saw the version of you crafted by a narcissist, someone who knows how to manipulate perception through fear, through whispers, through disguised sweetness and quiet deceit. You were pulled into a story you never wrote. You were forced to play the villain in a script designed by someone who needed others to serve as props in their distorted sense of power, and for a long time you fought back. You tried to explain, to clarify, to pull people out of the fog of misunderstanding, but eventually you realized every fabricated narrative will always find an audience willing to be misled. So let them believe what they choose to believe. Let the narcissists continue building their theater if they need it to survive. As for you, you no longer need to live in that play, because the truth doesn't need defending. It only needs one person brave enough to live it, quietly, kindly, and unwaveringly. You are no longer a victim, and you don't need to become a hero either. You only need to be someone who refuses to let a fictional narrative define who you are. Your reputation may have been stolen, but your dignity was not. Friendships may have been broken, but your integrity remains untouched, and your self-respect, when restored through lived experience, is stronger than any superficial praise you once craved. The greatest thing you reclaim isn't how others see you, it's the alignment within. It's being able to look in the mirror each morning and know, I stayed true even when misunderstood. I stood firm even when abandoned. And I remained kind even when the world met me with coldness and ingratitude. In the end, the freedom you're searching for isn't found in recognition. It's found in the right to live without needing anyone's permission to be who you are. And if you need one final reminder to close this chapter of your life, let it be this: you don't need anyone's forgiveness to move forward. You don't need anyone's belief to know you're worthy. You only need the courage to rise, to continue, and to leave the rest behind. If you've made it with me this far, I want you to know you're not just healing, you are being reborn. I'll see you in the next chapter, where you're no longer the one who explains, but the one who is finally free.